Fifth Avenue should have been alive, buzzing with cars and footsteps, but now it lay empty, silent under the fading light. Skyscrapers cast long, oppressive shadows, towering over a city that had forgotten how to move. I looked up at the buildings, dark and shattered. Windows stared back like hollow eyes, walls streaked with rain and time. Every flicker of a dying streetlight seemed to whisper secrets of what once was. At street level, the asphalt was cracked and littered with papers that skittered across the road. Empty benches stood like sentinels, and the shadows of the giant buildings stretched long, creeping over everything. The city was frozen, yet it felt alive in its absence. A pale mist began to crawl along the avenue, curling around corners and softening the edges of the street. The flickering lights cast ghostly shadows, and every step I took seemed amplified, swallowed by the silence. Fifth Avenue had become a corridor of shadows, waiting, watching. The alley stretched ahead like a throat of shadows, its brick walls wet and crumbling. Neon signs sputtered weakly, their glow struggling to survive the darkness. Every step echoed, and it felt like the walls themselves were holding their breath. A broken light above flickered, throwing long, restless shadows across the damp bricks. They moved when I didn't. Shapes stretched and shifted, as though something unseen was weaving itself into the alley's skin. I froze, listening, but the silence pressed harder. From the ground, the cracked pavement told its own story. Trash scattered, puddles rippling though nothing touched them. At the far end, a single lamp twitched on and off, like it was warning me to turn back. The air smelled of rust and rain, and still, it felt watched. Then the mist rolled in. It slithered between the walls, swallowing the light, wrapping itself around every shadow until they seemed alive. The alley no longer felt like a place. It felt like a presence, breathing, waiting, and hungry. The bus sat frozen in the middle of the street, its yellow paint dulled by dust and time. Cracked windows gaped like empty eyes, and the dead headlights stared into nothing. Around it, the silence pressed heavy, as if the city itself had forgotten this machine once carried voices. Inside, rows of seats stretched into shadow. Dust clung to every surface, glass crunched underfoot. The windows let in just enough light to remind me of what was missing. Laughter, chatter, the shuffle of passengers. Now the air was thick and stale, as if the bus itself was holding its breath. At the front, the driver's seat waited. The wheel was cracked, the mirror shattered, the controls covered in grime. For a moment, I could almost picture a pair of hands still gripping the wheel. A faint reflection glimmered in the windshield, but when I blinked, it was gone. From the outside, the fog wrapped around the bus, swallowing its edges until it looked less like a vehicle and more like a ghost. The streetlights flickered, and the shadows stretched unnaturally, as though they were reaching for the bus, waiting for passengers who would never arrive. The skyscraper rose like a tombstone in the night, its windows shattered into hollow eyes staring at the city below. Curtains tore loose in the wind, flapping like ragged banners. The building loomed heavy, as if mourning the world it once watched over. Up close, the windows told their story. Glass shards catching what little light remained, curtains swaying with ghostly rhythm. Behind the broken glass, a shape lingered, faint and impossible. It was gone when I blinked, but the feeling of being watched stayed. From the rooftop, the city spread out in silence. Concrete cracked beneath my feet, railings rusted and ready to crumble. Antennas bent toward the mist that rolled between buildings. Up here, surrounded by broken stone and wind, I felt completely alone. And not alone at all. At street level, the fog pressed against the walls, the skyscraper's face flickering with shadows that didn't belong. The broken windows whispered with every gust of air, a language of glass and wind that chilled me to the bone. The building didn't just stand there, it breathed. The tunnel stretched into the dark like a scar beneath the city. Cracked walls lined with rusted pipes dripped steady rhythms, and the dim lights overhead flickered like dying stars. Every sound echoed back louder than it should have, as though the passage itself was listening. Closer to the walls, the pipes hissed and groaned with age. Water dripped from their seams, pattering into shallow puddles. Each drop carried a weight, an echo that seemed to multiply in the silence. In the shifting shadows, the stains on the concrete almost looked like figures reaching out. Further down, the corridor gave way to water. Stagnant and murky, it filled the floor in slow, creeping waves. Reflections shimmered on the ceiling, bending and warping as though something beneath the surface was moving. My breath caught, but the air was already heavy with damp rot. The fog crept in next, rolling low and thick, swallowing the far end of the tunnel. The broken lights pulsed against it, painting the mist with a heartbeat of shadows. I couldn't see what lay beyond, but I could feel it. The passage didn't just hide something, it was waiting for me to enter.